us on Zoom? Cannot hear us on Zoom. Kim, can you?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, so Shelly can hear us.
Robin can hear you.
Robin, show her. But Kim, you
Darcy
can't?
can hear you.
Okay, so Kim, I think this is a you problem.
I can hear you, but it sounds like there's a wind rumbling over. It just stopped.
Yeah.
Oh, it just started again.
Same here. There's a rumbling that's so loud you can't hear anything.
I'm not having that. I don't have that issue.
Well, two of us do. Are the mics off for now?
The mics are on. That's how I think you can hear us.
Yeah.
I don't think you would hear us without the mics.
Well, the noise is so that we couldn't hear other people talking. So.
And this one's on too. Is it better now?
I do hear some wind. It's not too loud, but I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it sounds like wind.
Joe, if you turn it down, your volume, it helps a little. The wind's lower.
So will everything else.
Yeah. Who is the Zoom master, Rabbi?
That's quite a title, Zoom Master.
Listen, man, we're trying to promote the position.
Her name is Elizabeth.
Hey, Elizabeth. If we want to text and y'all in the chat, see if we can improve upon it, you go ahead.
And this is okay? You can hear well at this volume? So. Okay.
Oop. You're getting more people on Zoom, so if everybody can hear, I'm good.
Well, okay, so now if I talk right into the microphone, how's that? Not
That's
great?
good.
That's
That's
good.
great.
That's great. Okay, so we all just have to talk right into the microphone. All right. Hey, Kevin. Muted now. Okay. How about people in the room? Can you all hear me in the room? Yes? Okay. And if folks want to come in and we've got a circle here. If folks want to be in the circle, we will welcome that. So I want to say hi, and I'm so thrilled that our criminal justice task force continues with the holy work that it's doing, in large part led by Tamara Caldas. Let's have a round of applause for Tamara. If you don't know me, I'm Rabbi Mike Rothbaum, the rabbi here at Beth Havarim. Even if you do know me, I'm Mike Rothbaum. I've been asked to start with a little bit of Torah, which we love, and I am always willing to oblige. We're in the beginning of the book of Numbers. This is Parshat Bamidbar. Folks in the desert, the Israelites are traveling from slavery to liberation. It is not a super exciting parsha. I'm sorry. There's a lot of counting. There's a census being taken, and that's why the non-Jewish scholars called it the Book of Numbers, because it starts all with numbers. But it's actually in Hebrew Bamidbar, which means in the wilderness, and there's an in-between state here, right? And this whole book is about what does it mean to take all of the steps to get from oppression and enslavement to liberation and actually self-determination, right? Because they're on their way to the promised land, but they're in the middle, right? So it doesn't happen overnight. Getting to liberation and getting to self-determination doesn't happen overnight. And there's a whole book here, and we know spiritually it takes steps. We're in the steps right now in the Omer period between Passover and Shavuot. Things don't happen overnight. And having what we call in Hebrew netzach, endurance, to keep going, even when it might not even be our generation that fully feels the power of self-determination and full self-expression. That's hard. That means you're doing multi-generational work, but that's also holy work. And I'll tell you a little bit about this text, and I promise I will shut up and move along to the people you really came here to hear. Like I said, it's a little boring. There's a lot of marching. There's a lot of counting. They're walking together. Each tribe, there's 12 tribes. And then it says they marched this way. They marched in sort of a rectangle shape with the ark and the covenant was in the middle. And they camped together as tribes, and then they marched together as tribes. And it says, as they camp, so they shall march, each in position by their flags. And then you think, oh, they had flags? Oh, cool. The tribes have flags. I want to know what their flags look like. Al Daglehem, it says. Al Yado Lidiglehem. Each holding in their hand their flags. And so, did each tribe have a flag? Or did each person have a flag? Sort of metaphorically, do each one of us carry a flag? We look at prisons and they fly under the United States flag and the flag of Georgia, right? Which sort of gives them, we think, supposedly, a little bit of authority, right? But each human being in the jail or in the prison has their own flag, as it were, and each human being has their own banner, has their own standard. And I think the work that we do here takes us out of the mass incarceration kind of blob idea, right? And that there's this problem of mass incarceration, which doesn't talk about human beings, right? But a reminder that each person that Pat interacts with, each person who's incarcerated, has their own soul, their own spirit, their own flag, as it were. And I hope and I pray that the work that we do here can invite people to raise up their own personal beauty and their own personal soul, and that it can be a reminder to those of us on the outside to be looking for that, and to be seeing those people as individual sweet souls created, B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God, each flying under their own beautiful flag. In your Ratzon, it should be God's will. I'm going to hand it to you.
Sure.
Cool.
I'm going to quickly hand it to our guests
Right on.
so that we can start our introductions really with you all. I'm Tamara Caldas, and I'm a member here, and I've kind of helped pull this group together, and I'm really excited and honored and hope this is just the first of many conversations and actions and events that we have in support of and community with PAD, Policing Alternatives and Diversion here, and their many participants, clients, and others. So I'm going to hand this over to Ruby Beth, who is a beloved member of our greater community. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. For those of you who are in the room, if you feel comfortable to do so, please join the inner circle here since we're a small group. If you'd rather stay on the outside, that's fine, of course. Hi, I'm Ruby Beth Beautycants. I'm really happy to be here. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and if I don't seem familiar, but my name does, my mother was a member here for many years, Beth Ann Beautycant, and thank you. And she, if she was still on this plane of existence, would be here tonight. So I'm very happy to say that and get to be here. So I'm actually gonna have us, I have an organizing background. I am a lawyer by trade now, but I have an organizing background. So we have to start with an icebreaker. That's just kind of the rule of organizing, in my opinion. So I'm actually gonna ask everybody to go around and introduce themselves with their name and their pronoun, and then try this on. If this feels like a little bit of a stretch for you, that's okay, but try coming up with one word. Try to just stick to one word of how you are showing up this evening. So what is the feeling, what is the energy you're bringing? But I'm gonna ban a word, which is curious. So try to get a little creative. and think of a word of how you're showing up this evening in this space. So why don't we actually start with the folks on Zoom, if that's okay? Could you help us with the unmuting, Elizabeth? And Kim, if you're still there, I'm going to start with you.
Thanks, Ruby Beth. I really appreciate that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just speak up pretty loudly, please.
Okay. Gosh, can't use curious. I'm Kim Goldsmith. It's one word. Oh my goodness. Hopeful. Hopeful. There you go.
Thanks, Kim. And would you pass it to somebody else on the Zoom, please?
Joe.
I'm Joe Chansey. My pronouns are he and him. One word. I was feeling kind of sarcastic. The first word that came to me was that I'm dressed.
Is what?
I'm dressed. I'm fully dressed.
We love to see it. Joe, could you pass it on to somebody?
Let's see. Robin Shahar.
Hey, Joe, thanks. I'm Robin Shahar. She, her pronouns. Hi, Ruby Beth. It's good to see you. Overwhelmed.
Thanks, Robin. Could you pass it on?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Jose.
Hello, I'm Jose Caldas, and my word for tonight is calm. Just calm.
Thanks, Jose. Could you pass it?
Let's see. Let's go to Cheryl Dudley.
Cheryl Dudley. Okay, thank you. My pronouns are she, her, and this will probably be the weirdest word you'll hear tonight, possibly. Voting. You want to? You said one word. I can explain, but one word: voting.
No, we're keeping it to
Oh.
one.
All right, and ooh, I have to put my glasses on. That's pretty bad. All right, Darcy.
I'm Darcy Cody. I use she, her pronouns, and my word is barely. As in, I barely made it here. And I'll popcorn it to Leanne.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leanne Rubenstein. I use she, her pronouns, and my word is community. Oh, and I will, why do we always, then we wait for someone else to take over. I will pass it to Shelley.
Hi, I'm Shelley Cotlier. My pronouns are she, her, and unbelievably, I was going to say the word community. So I just did.
Marta.
Oh, Marta Ines.
Hi, I'm Marta Ines, and I come here tonight feeling connected. And it's so great to see you, Ruby Beth.
Thank you. Henry, I think you're last on Zoom. We will come back to Henry. Okay, I'm going to pass it to my left.
Hi, I'm Jackie Sherman, she, her pronouns, and my word is anticipating.
Hi, I'm Alan, he, him, his, and bridge. And Jean.
I'm Jean Cavlack, she, her pronouns, and my word is hopeful.
Hi, I'm Fran. I'm Fran Shahar. She, her. I also respond to yo. And I'm tired. I've been in this struggle a long time.
I'm Sandra Menace, she, her, and believe it or not, I am just tired today.
I'm Lauren Levin. I use she, her pronouns, and my word is perseverance.
I'm Mike, he, him pronouns. I am coming here looking around in real great excitement.
And you all know I'm Tamara Caldas, she, her pronouns, and I'm actually a little anxious.
Nicole Wiesen, she, her pronouns. We're tired today, actually. It's been a long day.
Oh, I think Henry's ready now.
Hi, my name is Sade Muckle, she, her. I was kind of fighting between two words, but I guess I'll go with observant.
I'm Grant Oliver, he, him pronouns, and my word is intrigued.
Kara Basterak, she, her, and I will go with prioritizing.
Jane Diamond, she, her, trying.
Naomi Bach, she, her, motivated.
Deshnir King, Desh for short, pronouns they, them, and we're determined.
Amy Leventhal, pronouns they, them, bringing the love.
My name is Kevin Weeks, and pronoun is he, him, and my word is informative.
Eileen Oliver, she, her, angry.
Hi everyone, I'm Clara Totenberg Green, she, her, and I'm also going to go with connected.
Hi y'all, my name is Emma Weinstein Levy. I'm she, her pronouns, one word. Jeez, I just went dance. I didn't focus that much. Danced out. I just came from dance class. So.
Henry on Zoom, would you like to check in? Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Henry, he, him, concerned.
Thank you. So I just wanted to name that we're all coming in different spaces and with different energy, and that's okay. This is often complicated work, and work that requires us to be motivated, exhausted, strategizing, all of the things. So it's fine to be however you are. And if you're just curious, but I didn't let you say curious, that's actually okay too. So I'm really, really happy to be here. It's an honor to get to talk about PAD, and I have a number of different kind of connections with the history of PAD and its current work, but most importantly right now for this conversation, I sit on the community leadership team that Clara put together, so I get to be a person who's not, paid by PAD or working for anything in the actual goings on day to day, but somebody who's an avid supporter, and even somebody who gets to brainstorm with the team and think through how to make things sharper and more accessible and easier. So very honored to play that role. I really am so excited for you all to get to learn from Clara, who knows so much and is an incredible asset to our city in terms of this work, and is gonna walk us through some of the history of PAD, some of the work that's currently going on, some of the threats that the program faces, and how we can all be so much more supportive of this important initiative.
Thank you, Ruby Beth. What's her name again? Elizabeth, are you able to pull up the presentation and do a screen share? Okay. Hi everyone. Thank you for that incredibly kind introduction. I'm Clara Totenberg Green, as I said earlier, and I just want to introduce two of my teammates who are here tonight. This is Emma, what was hers? Danced out, yeah. So Emma is going to also share a little bit about her work when we get to that section. And Dash, who is our newest teammate at PAD, and I work very closely with, and I'm very happy they're here as well. So just raise your hand if you are familiar with PAD. Okay. I know some of you are not only familiar, have come out and testified in front of the Fulton County commissioners on our behalf, and done a lot more. So those of you that have been intricately involved, I am infinitely appreciative. So we're gonna just talk a little bit about the history of PAD, what we do every single day, but my hope is that this can be an incredibly informal conversation and we can just like jump in. If you have questions, please just raise your hand and ask the question. To the folks that are doing the work with me, please do not hesitate to say something. I already told some people, my daughter woke up at 6 in the morning today and it was a very long day and I am tired as well, but I wasn't gonna bring that, I wasn't gonna say that one word, but so y'all, I need everyone's help in the room. So is there also a way that I could click to the next slide or do I need to tell you? It's okay if that's it. Okay. Will you go to the next one, please? Yeah, that one, perfect. Yep. So that's our team. That picture was actually taken like just 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So the PAD initiative, or the Policing Alternatives and Diversion Initiative, but that's a very long name, so we just say PAD. We were born out of the work and the vision of folks that were directly impacted by policing in the city of Atlanta and by over-incarceration. And so basically, and this is not unfamiliar, I imagine, to many of you in the room. In this country, and certainly in Atlanta, we have an extreme over-reliance on policing as the solution to all social challenges, and particularly social challenges that are related to mental health, substance use, and extreme poverty. We have tried to police our way out of these issues and incarcerate our way out of them, and unsurprisingly, not only has it not worked at addressing the underlying issues, but it's also caused enormous harm, particularly to Black and Brown communities. And so this is, of course, happening nationwide, and it's happening here in Atlanta. I think we're all familiar with like the "if you see something, say something" motto, right? So there's like this idea here in our country that if anything seems slightly uncomfortable to you, the solution is to call 911 and bring a law enforcement officer out to respond. And what we're really trying to do is something different. So we have that on one hand, which has been the history of this city, and unfortunately, in many ways, is still the reality of our city. And then on the other hand, we have a city that has massively underdeveloped and underfunded social services. So in Atlanta, there are 2 bathrooms in the entire city that are open 24 hours. So if you have to use the bathroom and you are unhoused, or quite frankly, if you are me and you're downtown doing something and there's no bathroom to go to, you're gonna go to the bathroom outside, right? Well, using the bathroom outside is illegal. You can get locked up for months for using the bathroom outside. In the city of Atlanta, there are no day centers, so there's nowhere that you can just walk in to hang out, to charge your phone, to wash your face, except the library. There are no walk-in crisis centers. So if you have a loved one that is in the middle of a mental health crisis, unless you have access to significant income to pay for a private place to go to, there's nowhere to go. So on top of that, we have extreme city ordinances in the city of Atlanta that are 100% criminalizing poor people. So you can be arrested, and we see this every single day in our work, for sleeping on the street, so essentially being homeless, right? As I said, for using the bathroom outside, for panhandling, prowling is an odd one that I've heard. Prowling, loitering, all of the things that we know are historically tied to racism and white supremacy in this country, and are still being practiced in our city. And so you have, yeah. Oh, this one's on too, right? Yeah. Okay,
so maybe we can use one for questions and one for Clara. Do you know, and it's okay if you don't, but I was just curious if you know, in terms of like the bathroom stats and the walk-in center, how Atlanta compares to other cities of its size? Because that's not true everywhere.
No, it's not true everywhere. But I think it is. I don't know a specific stat off the top of my head, but it's certainly not as bad as Atlanta. Atlanta has the absence of resources is extreme.
Thanks.
And this is within a context of, I was talking with some folks earlier, so 90% of Atlanta is in Fulton County. Fulton County incarcerates its residents and incarcerates Atlantans at 3 times the rate of other urban counties in the country. So we have this simultaneous addiction to arresting and incarcerating our own and not providing the resources that they need to survive. And of course, I'm sure you have seen that Atlanta is also the most unequal city in the country, right? So all of these factors have been going on, are still going on, and they all converged and kind of hit this crisis point in 2013 when there was a proposed ban on people that had been convicted of sex work in the past from being in Midtown. So what it's essentially meant was that if you had been convicted of sex work, you were literally banned from the area of Midtown. And if you got convicted twice, you would be banned from the entire city. This was, I have chills talking about it because it's horrific, and it disproportionately targets trans women because we know that the police are locking up trans women at disproportionate rates for sex work, right? So out of that, a broad coalition of folks started organizing to fight back against it, and it was led by the Solutions Not Punishment Collaborative, or SNAPCO, which is still around and doing really incredible work in the city. And PAD didn't exist at that time, but this broad base of organizing came out, and they successfully defeated the ordinance. But they also said, okay, there's a bigger conversation here about criminal justice reform and about how we address underlying what we call quality of life issues, but really survival activities, things that people are doing to survive on the street that are being criminalized in our city. How do we address that without criminalizing them and instead connecting people to resources? And so they, after defeating the ordinance, this coalition of organizers and also electeds and people in all aspects of life, people doing policy work in the city, as I said, elected officials, organizers, all the different groups came together and they said, let's explore what's possible. And they went to Seattle, where a project called Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion started, and it's now nationwide. And it's basically the idea that law enforcement should have an option to not arrest someone if the law violation that they're engaged in is driven by a survival activity. So in other words, if a police officer, and I'm actually really trying to start use the phrase police officer instead of law enforcement, because I was at a conference recently where someone said, when we use the word law enforcement, we're supporting the idea of what they're doing is an enforcement strategy that we need, right? And so I'm pivoting to police officer. Yeah, keep me honest. And so, but the idea is basically that if someone is sleeping on your front porch or sleeping on an abandoned property's porch, and an officer gets out there and they're like, okay, this is illegal. This is technically illegal. I could lock them up right now. Clearly, that is not going to address the underlying issue, and they're going to get out, and they're going to have nowhere to go, and they're going to come back to this porch, and their needs aren't going to be met, and their challenges are going to be even more intensified because now they've been behind bars for 3 months. We can do something different. And so law enforcement has the ability to do something called, it's like ingrained. The police officer can do something called pre-arrest diversion. And so in Atlanta, that means that they can literally call us. They call a dedicated line for officers, and our teams come out to provide resources. I'm going to get into that in a little bit, and that side of our work along with another side, but can you change the slide for me?
Clara, could we pause for a second and see if folks have questions?
I talked
that was a lot. It was very helpful history, and I actually had forgotten that a lot of that coalition building started around the Midtown Ordinance, so that was really helpful history to hear. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah. Great.
That's fine, thank you. My question is, how do your program assist men and women that are getting out of prison who have done long sentences and only get out with just $35 and no family and so forth and so on? Because I've done 21 years and I'm concerned about that, because being in the Atlanta area, I see men and I can tell, and that bothers me, and and I want to know how can I help? So do your program provides that?
Can I hold your question for a little bit?
Sure,
Just
sure.
collect a few more, and then yeah. So.
Nicole, you should introduce yourself. I didn't know Nicole was here.
I'm Nicole Wiesen. Claire, we have gone through email together. I am the regional coordinator for the Multi-Faith Initiative for Ending Mass Incarceration at Ebenezer Baptist Church. So in answer to your question, yes, because I work with some of her colleagues, Drew Umberger, who has come to me along with Ava with several clients that we have helped house or put into another program. So yes, they do. It just depends on where they fall and where they are in their mental health journey. If they're a level 3, a level 4, then we figure things out differently. But yes, we do help.
I'm going to go into more detail in a little bit when I lay out also some of what we're doing, if that's okay. Thank you. I'm glad to meet you in person. Yeah, my favorite activity.
Are there any programs training police to consider more sensitivity in arresting people or considering mental health issues?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, you really went hard with the big question. Yeah. So there are, and I think that, and Atlanta Police Department does get a lot of those trainings. We train the Atlanta Police Department on one thing and one thing only, and that's to choose an alternative to arrest. We are very much of the mindset that the only way to reduce police violence is to reduce police contact. And so we are quite frankly not trying to humanize policing or to improve policing, but to get the police out of things that they should not be involved in the first place. And I think sometimes that's a really hard line in our communication to community members, because clearly not everyone agrees with that, right? But that has always been the underlying thing for us is, does this, if we're discussing even a training that we should be doing, even a coworker recently was like, well, we should be doing a mental health training. And I'm like, that's not our lane. That is someone's lane, but it's not ours. That is the part that we don't do, because we're really trying to figure out the alternative. So, yeah.
Do you find that more and more the police are coming to you and saying, how can we work with you? How can we work together to...
Alan, you're really putting me on the spot with the big question. Can I also hold that question? But I want to talk about it. No, it's the question that everyone asks. That's the number one question. So in 2017, we launched in parts of Zone 5 and Zone 6, which if you're like me, even if you're from Atlanta, you do not think about the city by police zones, but it's basically downtown area, some of the East Atlanta. Oh, this is Zone 6 we're in right now. And so we launched a pilot in 2017 to provide law enforcement police the option to divert to us instead of arresting people. From 2017 to 2021, we were just in those zones. And then 2020 changed everything, right? And so what I always say is the idea of pre-arrest diversion, of law enforcement choosing an alternative to arrest 5 years ago, you were there, was radical. That was the wildest thing that anyone could imagine. We had to rally the troops. We had to get people to vote on it. It was a huge, huge thing that many cities were not doing. And now it feels doesn't feel like, it feels like a thing that lots of cities are doing. And it doesn't feel that radical because I think the conversation shifted so much in the uprisings that happened in the summer of 2020 and the like reimagining of what was possible and the public demand and desire for not just law enforcement to have an alternative to arrest, but for the community, the Atlanta community, to choose an alternative as well. And so in 2021, in January 2021, like 3 months or 2 months after I joined PAD, they just threw me right in, we launched community response services with Atlanta ATL 311. So is everyone familiar with 311? Yeah, so 311, it's actually like a fairly new thing. So I think in Atlanta, it came out like 8 years ago, but it's a non-emergency city line. So just like you can call 911 or you can call 211, which goes to United Way, you can call 311. That's where you address your potholes. That's where you get your speed bumps that I worked for 2 years to get on my street. If your trash wasn't picked up, any non-emergency city service, it's 311. And so we said, we already had this partnership going with the city of Atlanta to do pre-arrest diversion. And we said, okay, we have mobile response teams ready. We have the infrastructure. We're right downtown. Why don't we partner with the city to enable all residents to have an alternative to calling 911 when they see an issue that they know they want support addressing, but they don't want to call the police. They don't want 911 involved at all. And so now, anywhere in Atlanta, right here, you can call 311 and you can say, you know, there's someone sleeping on my porch. I'm not sure what to do. Or there's a guy banging on the business window that's clearly struggling with some mental health concerns, and I'm really scared the police are gonna come out. Can you guys come out instead? And we have mobile response teams that go out on the scene. Our response time is about 20 minutes to try to connect the person to services and care and to address an immediate issue that is driving that concern, right? Like, so a lot of times we'll go out there because someone is completely naked, and that is 100% something that they would normally get locked up for. And we can get there, we can immediately give them clothes from the back of our car, we can get them a warm meal, we can take them where they need to go. Right after we launched, we started taking calls for public indecency, I was outside the Atlanta City Detention Center, which is a city jail, and there was a woman who was completely naked and she was screaming. And the head of the jail was standing on the steps of the jail, and I started talking to him, and he was like, I don't know what to do. This isn't something we can help with. And I called our team, and our office is 1 block away, so our team goes out, and they found out that she had been at a shelter and wanted a shower, and they didn't want to give her a shower at that time, and a confrontation escalated, and they pepper sprayed her. And she got kicked out of the building, and so she took all of her clothes off because she was trying to get the pepper spray off of her, and she's screaming hysterically. And we were able to immediately address that, right? While the officer is standing there, the police are standing there, and they themselves are like, this is not a police issue. We have no idea what to do, right? So I think those are the type of concerns that, you know, we see every single day in our work. Yeah.
Do you have the capacity, your teams, aside from giving clothes, food, and a ride, do you also have mental health workers available and mental health facilities available to take people to?
Yes to the first one and no to the second. And I'm actually, do you want to, I don't even know where we are on this. Can you go one more for me? One more?
So to piggyback on that, can you 1013? Do you have anyone on your staff who can 1013? You should talk to me. You should talk to me.
Yeah, why don't you just talk about our kind of information side for
Are we jumping ahead? Are we ready for that? Well, for the non-mental health professionals among us, would you like to explain what 1013ing is?
It's involuntary hospitalization.
This is just how I speak.
You take care of yourself or somebody else, or you can't take care of yourself because you're so decompensated.
The people on Zoom can't hear if you don't have a mic.
Oh,
it's all right.
I'm going to turn to you in 1 second. So, okay, So we provide law enforcement an alternative to arrest. We provide community members an alternative to calling 911. When we get out there, some different things can happen, right? Anytime law enforcement diverts someone to us, they are enrolled if they want to be, because everything we do is on a consent basis, which Emma will talk about. They become a participant in our program. That means they are assigned a care navigator, which is our nice way of saying caseworker. We have a legal navigator on our team. We have a housing manager on our team. We provide them with immediate respite housing. We put them in a hotel for a week just to get them off the street immediately to address the concern. And then we work with them for as long as they want to work with us to address whatever concerns they may have and to get whatever stability they want, right? So for most people, that's housing. But not everyone. Some people are really focused on getting sober. Some people are like, I don't want to get sober, and that's okay with us. We have no requirements to participation in our program. That is like the foundation of what we do. So anyone that is diverted becomes a participant. If a referral, and this gets a little confusing, but if you make a community referral and we get out there, if the person has ongoing criminal legal issues in the city, they are eligible to become a participant. We do not have the capacity, the funding, the team to provide case management or long-term support for every single person in this city that needs help, because as you can imagine, that's thousands and thousands of people. And so our kind of, our focus has always been supporting the people who are most at risk of ongoing criminal legal contact. So like if they have an existing charge and they're living on the street and they don't have a phone, we know they're gonna get locked up again if they don't get assistance, right? And so we prioritize those folks. For people that are not eligible to become participants because they don't have that, we will still do whatever we can to address their immediate concerns, giving them a hot meal, getting them out of that situation, if they want to get out of that situation, trying to connect them to a shelter, giving them a MARTA card, sometimes giving them a phone. A lot of people are already connected to caseworkers at other organizations but have lost contact because they don't even have a way to contact them.
Do you partnership with the ACT teams, the intensive case management teams at Grady?
We partner with Grady, but do you partner with ACT?
And crisis stabilization, the mobile crisis units, do you partnership with those people?
I'm going to turn it over to Emma.
Yeah, so case by case, I think is the answer. We do not 1013 people, one, because we don't have the staffing for it. There are several limited licensed professionals on our staff, myself included, but, and ultimately beyond that, and Clara, please weigh in on this, you've been at PAD longer than I have, it's not really the spirit of things that we do. If somebody is a danger to themselves and others, that is sort of above what we do. Our community response teams are trained to understand when it exceeds the level of the support they can provide, and they will call EMS or call mobile crisis and something like that. And that person will be the one who would do the 1013. But that's not really the business that we're in, by and large. And I think I don't think it's something we aspire to be doing either.
We're really trying to address, that does happen. Sometimes we get out to a concern and it is much greater than what our teams can address. And much greater, you know, more serious than something we can address. And we'll call Grady or one of our partners. That's very, very rare. The vast majority of people that are being incarcerated in this city are just literally sleeping on the street. Definitely have many, many concerns, but are not in a mental health crisis in any way. And so we're trying, we're kind of going for the low-hanging fruit, but the low-hanging fruit is the thing that is fueling mass incarceration, you know?
So I also want to note that we can't see the Zoom people, so I don't know if there are questions coming in, Elizabeth, but maybe if folks want to put them in the chat and you can read them to us. I'm trying to think about us as a synagogue, right? Yeah. Who believes in the infinite value of all souls and don't believe in warehousing people and different outcomes for people of color, et cetera, and different income wealth levels. I could imagine we could advocate for the police to use you more often. We could advocate for our people to get the word out about 311. We could advocate for taking some police budget and putting it toward PAD budget. We could do a lot of things, and sometimes because we're all Jews with lots of opinions and we like to talk, like we have trouble and anxiety, and we're also worried about ourselves because the world doesn't like the Jews so much. So I think at some point, doesn't have to be now because it's your presentation, like if you could help us. We'll get there? Focus, we just need some focus. I'm just looking at the time because you asked for questions. You asked for questions. I thought 8:30. I'm just anticipating Jews having lots of questions and talking until you run out of time.
So, no, it's actually, we talked about it, and it was actually an incredibly helpful conversation and thinking out, like, it is my eternal challenge of thinking out how to tap people into the work, because a lot of people will like call and they'll say, I want to volunteer, can I go out with one of your teams? And we're like, no, like, would you call to go out with like EMS or the police? Like, that's not feasible. And so but we're also we're not a housing provider, right? We don't have a kitchen. We're not like a traditional social service. And so figuring out how to tap the community in is very hard, but we also are completely dependent on the community support and feedback and buy-in. So what I'm gonna do is, I'd love Emma to just talk briefly about just like what the whole care navigation thing is and the idea of consent as like a guiding philosophy in everything we do. And then I actually have a video, the Washington Post profiled us, and there's a video that they did of our team that I think kind of gives you a little insight into how it looks in practice. And then I was gonna throw out some ideas, and then we can just like talk and answer all the questions. Yeah?
Sounds great. Thanks, Clara. Okay, I'll try to move fast but not talk too fast because I know we have a hard stop at a certain point. So what happens? Someone's diverted from arrest, a community referral comes in, and it turns out they've got open cases in Fayette County, Fulton County, DeKalb County. And they say, oh my gosh, look, somebody showed up. Maybe they can help. That's great. What happens next? They are often brought directly into our office, depending on the time of day, I think, by the community response team, and given a meal, depending on the time of day or their situation or what they're seeking. They may be placed in emergency housing. We have a couple of hoteling partnerships. We work with a couple of transitional houses, what you might call a halfway house, though I don't think that's the de rigueur terminology these days. Treatment program. So yeah, supportive housing is the overall umbrella. Transitional or half is sort of what I'm thinking of as we work towards getting them into permanent supportive housing, which I'll get to in a second. So, and within the first, I think ideally 24 to 48 hours, that person who qualifies for PAD services and has consented is connected to a care navigator. I love the term care navigation. It is a little like, nicer than case manager, but this stuff is so hard to navigate. I mean, I have a master's degree in social work. I still think going through the food stamps application process can be challenging and really tough. So I think this navigation piece really speaks to the sort of walking with somebody along this path of accessing the services that they need. Within care navigation, they provide everything, anything you can imagine. Essentially, if you want it, they can help you try to get it. They're not miracle workers, but they provide all kinds of services from the most basic food, healthcare, mental health care, to like mothers who need supplies for their young children, or connecting to like financial literacy, or even like investment opportunities for like young people, or for people that have never had a chance at that kind of access to capital. There's all kinds of things that care navigators provide, and because PAD has this ethos of consent-based work, following the lead of the person that we're working with, it really opens up so many wonderful doors for creativity in case management or care navigation that is a little bit different than you might see at a traditional social service agency. Ultimately, though, as Clara said, we're not a provider of most of these services. We are really committed to being a linkage organization. That's a big challenge in a city like Atlanta, where often there are not enough things to link to. But by having this team of folks who are used to working with people in many different stages of an addiction journey, a mental health journey, a struggle with finances, whatever it may be, we are aware of the many, 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 many things that we can link folks to and have cultivated some really wonderful connections to different kinds of providers in those spaces. So that's care navigation. One of the primary focuses is housing. The vast majority of the people that we work with are unsheltered. Many are living on the streets, some are sort of in and out of shelters, some are with family or friends, or have an agreement with a person they knew from 20 years ago whose porch they're allowed to sleep on, something like that. So one of the biggest parts of our work is helping folks to apply for the Georgia Housing Voucher, which has been a program that's around Georgia for, I'm not sure, I think since, okay. It's a newish program to Georgia. You seem like you know a lot about housing in Georgia. Are you familiar with the Georgia Housing Voucher? You know how long it's been here? Once a year. Almost 10 years, right? So it's newer, but absolutely, yeah, it does. I mean, there's. It's not Section 8, right? It is not. No, yeah. It is a state-based program, unrelated to the Atlanta Housing Authority or HUD or things like that. The primary criteria, and we need our housing manager for this because I'm gonna not get it right, is that you have a diagnosis of a mental illness. It has to be, there's some, what's the primary, what's the secondary, but for most of the people that we work with, living on the streets, it's a traumatizing experience. And we take folks to get a behavioral health assessment in which they can get a diagnosis if they've never had one before. And the vast majority of people that we work with, meet the criteria for PTSD, which I think is one of the qualifying criteria. Yeah. So yeah, we help folks with that, and it's been really, really successful. I think right now our number for folks housed so far this year is, through the Georgia Housing Voucher, is over 30, which is pretty good. I'm being pretty cautious in my estimate there. I think that it might actually be more. And that's kind of one of the biggest things we're doing. Within care navigation, I actually have a slightly different role. So my title is clinical advocate on the SWEET team, on SWEET, which is Street Wellness Enhancement and Engagement Team. It's PAD's newest project. It's funded by the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities to try and reach the folks that are kind of even harder to reach than our regular folks. People that often meet the criteria for ACT, that's a sort of community treatment, the highest level of outpatient care available in the country, right? Yeah. But for whatever reason, haven't been connected to that, because while it's a really fantastic model for care, you have to have somebody refer you to it, and you have to meet very specific criteria. So if you're having a mental health crisis but not seeking psychiatric hospitalization every time that happens, you would maybe be a perfect fit for ACT, but ACT needs to have the hospital records to actually get you in there. So, linking with us can be kind of a bridge towards those longer term, more wraparound services, because my team is just myself. I'm a social worker and a certified peer specialist. And we have a smaller caseload, and we meet with folks about 3 times a week, sometimes more. And regular care navigation, I think, is once every 1 or 2 weeks, I want to say. So yeah, that's been a new project that we're working on. Sometimes it's trying to reach the folks that are like familiar faces to the court system and the EMS, or in the emergency rooms, excuse me. Yeah, and sometimes it's just folks who seem like they maybe need a little extra help, for whom regular care navigation isn't enough. So, and once you're in a PAD care navigation relationship, you're there for life. I mean, folks can advance in status. Like if service linkage is successful, we might consider them advanced because they are getting those things that we can't provide. But that doesn't mean they can't call us and, ask for whatever it may be, and, ask to be linked to something additionally in the future. But that is our goal, ultimately, is to advance folks to those supportive services that maybe nobody has had the patience or the time to help them link to for their whole lives.
Yeah.
So
The lights are always on.
Yeah, the lights are always on, exactly.
I like 2 years ago, I was at City Hall with our executive director, and we were walking back to our office, and we saw this guy on the street, and he recognized her because he had been a participant in our program. But during COVID, he was locked up 1 month before COVID hit, and so he watched it all unfold while being incarcerated in the Fulton County Jail. And so when he got out, was a hard world to get out into, right? And so when he saw her, he was so excited, and she was like, "Just come back, come say hi." And he was so it was like he couldn't believe that we were like, "Really, come back, like we want to see you." And I saw him earlier this week, and he had gotten the housing voucher, and he was moving into his first place, and it was just like, it was one of those like really full circle, beautiful moments. And I just want to flag that, even though our participant amount, the number of people that we work with intensively over time it's not thousands of people, right? I always go back to the idea of reducing the police contact in the first place. So we have responded to thousands of community referrals from community members and hundreds of pre-arrest diversions by the police. And so even if they don't become a participant, I absolutely still think it is a successful intervention if we came out instead of the police, right? And I always try to hold that in my heart, because I think sometimes people can get frustrated, they call us and we weren't able to work miracles, or someone didn't want to work with us. But that doesn't mean that harm was not prevented, right? Okay, having no sense of time. 7 minutes? Is that okay? Okay.
Any questions in the chat, just so we're not ignoring our friends?
I've seen how it can go in the community, how things can take a wrong turn. Something has to.
Can you please pass the mic?
I don't think they can hear that. Can you pause it for a second? Turn it off, Claire. Yeah. It's that, I think you need to share sound on the Zoom. Do you know how to do that, Kara?
Is it the bottom right, bottom left there, where it says showing audio? Is that it?
Could y'all reshare?
Zoom folks, could you not hear the audio at all?
No.
No. Okay. We're troubleshooting.
Oh, wait, go back. Go in here. Share sound. Click that, and then can we just start over? Is that okay? Should I turn this off?
I've seen how it can go in the community, how things can take a wrong turn.
Okay, what we're gonna do, yeah, I'm just gonna have them wait, or just tell them, they're just not gonna hear that sound.
We could hear that.
Or I could.
That's fine. The Nick Project, I'm not familiar. Can you tell me about it after, yeah.
We could see the video.
I clicked it. But it was working, I think, then, but it wasn't sharing here.
Oh.
Okay, so while we're figuring that out, I'm gonna skip around. Okay.
Zoom
wait,
folks, can you
they
hear
can't
us
me
now?
probably,
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Hi, Robin. We were on a call today. Okay, so these were some of the ideas we were brainstorming for ways that folks could get involved. So the biggest issue facing PAD is we need more people to know about us. We are, until recently, it was just Clara Totenberg Green, the one man, one woman community engagement, communications, and policy person. Thank God for Dash. So but we are providing a city service, but we're a tiny nonprofit trying to do public awareness across the entire city, and it's a huge task. And so we need help spreading the word, and we need help getting our call volume up. We need more people to call us. We want you to call us instead of calling the police, and you to intervene in situations where you see someone is asking a question and they're like, I don't know what to do. I know I don't want to call the police. We need you to say, hey, have you heard about PAD? You can call 311 to reach PAD, right? So a few of the tangible things that we talked about. We are about to launch canvassing in neighborhoods across Atlanta that have high arrests that are resulting from people calling 911 instead of calling, or just calling 911 saying, hey, we need help, and the cops come out and they arrest someone. We are gonna start canvassing in those areas. If canvassing is something that you're into and you just miss, election season so much, I know we all miss it, that is something that you can plug into. We could also, what we're exploring now is having like house parties, like where you have a meet and greet for an elected official, have a meet and greet for PAD. Have some wine, some chips, dip. We'll come out, we'll share a few words about PAD. You and your neighbors can mingle, socialize, and we'll just share a little bit about who we are. Very informal, doesn't need to be 100 people, just like you would do any type of meet and greet, right? Another thing is that of course, we are always accepting donations, but we're financial, right? But we're also accepting donations for actual materials that our teams need in the field. So that's food, that's bandages, that's socks, that's underwear, that's blankets. We have a long list of things that we need, right? So you can directly donate those resources. But another thing that we were talking about is hosting a drive. So Bet Havarim could host a drive, right? Where people just dropped off or brought resources here. Or if you are in your neighborhood, you say, I live in Westview, it's on the west side of Atlanta, you say, Westview is gonna host a drive for PAD. If you'd like to donate any of these materials, drop them off at my porch, and then I will coordinate with people to get them picked up. But the thing is, it's in the process, you're not just giving us materials that we desperately need, but you're also educating people about PAD, right? I feel like I'm missing one of our ideas. It was on my slide. Oh, it was on my slide. And I think like, I said them. But I think the big one is that, sadly, PAD's survival is not sadly, that's how it should be. PAD's survival is dependent on the community that supports it. And so Rabbi Mike had to come out to the Fulton County Board of Commissioners when they tried to defund us to say, don't defund PAD. And they didn't. We won that fight. And we only won that fight because we got hundreds of people there to speak out on our behalf. And so, yes, absolutely. And the diversity of people that were there, it was incredibly powerful. And so we need like our community champion in us saying that we want this alternative, that this is the future for the city that we want, and like we are protecting it, right? Because it's not guaranteed. Sadly, if the community does not stand behind PAD and all the other resources and things that you want, they will go away, right? Yeah.
So as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about the fact that there are at least 3 synagogues that I'm aware of that are in the city of Atlanta, perhaps more, actually 4 that I'm thinking of, and that we all have relationships, and that we all participate, for example, in Project Isaiah, during the high holiday period when we collect food for the food bank. If we knew what you needed, we could be really specific and collect food for you. Like just small things, some sort of practical ways to connect into things that are already happening that make the bridge easier.
I love that.
So,
that's exactly it. Yeah.
Jackie, this is Kim. I want to add something to that. One of the things I found in the last year is that this community loves to give specific things needed. And it is somewhat easy, and I'm happy to help to organize that. And then we could move to other communities. but we really seem to shine there.
Can I say something? Oh, go ahead.
Can I jump? Oh.
Yeah, Leanne, go ahead, if that was you.
So what I like about this idea, giving things I think is low hanging fruit. And sometimes I would say, come on, we can do more than that, another drive. But it's easy, one. And the thing is the piece about it with the education of what PAD is, I think if we did something like this, that needs to be like a central component. Not just that we're collecting socks and blankets and everybody goes, oh, homelessness. Okay. But really that there is an educational component to it. So so it's, sort of, a two-pronged approach or whatever you want to say, so that someone say something funny.
No, sorry, there's some video cut on and it sounded like an advertisement. You're fine.
Oh,
Keep going.
okay. Because I'm like, okay, is this a bad idea? You're laughing.
No.
And okay.
I know, you might not be able to see the room, but you're getting a lot of head nods in agreement.
Okay. Thank you. I feel better. I was going to call you afterwards and just check in. As
you always do.
Yes, I'll call you anyway. But just that's what I would just say is let's make it about education just as much as stuff.
So Leanne, to build on what you said, we have many opportunities when we have hundreds of people in a room as a captive audience, when we could do some simple basic education and hand out a flyer or a card, and every synagogue, I know that the churches can do this. We have the connections with synagogues. We could help get that to happen.
Beautiful. I think I agree with you. I think we're collecting because someone doesn't need to go to jail because they need these things, kind of like that's part of the messaging.
All right, we got a few more hands up here.
So this is not a synagogue thing, but I'm just wondering if PAD anybody who is on Nextdoor knows that constantly you're seeing, somebody posting that, oh, there's a person walking down my street and they're looking, weird, or they're going through my, Bolo, they're going through my recycling bin. Like, that's a big threat to anybody. But, and then you get all these responses on Nextdoor, some of which I've seen are call 311. But then other people say, oh, 311, they don't, whatever, because you guys are dependent on 311. I think they're only open Monday through Friday daytime. Is that right? Or they? So that's a lot of when this stuff is happening where the need is. So that was one question. Is there any way to get some other, either for those hours to be expanded or for PAD to have some other route?
Yeah, so the not being 24/7 thing is an enduring question we get asked. I will say that the majority of arrests that are happening in the city for PAD eligible PAD eligible concerns that are driven, things related to substance use, extreme poverty, or mental health are happening from 7 to 7. So people, it is of course true that there are things happening at night on the weekends, but I think that people, I'm not sure what the right phrase is. I always like to remind people that actually the majority are happening during our hours, and I see the arrest data every single month. And so I see every single month hundreds and hundreds of people are being arrested from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. that could have been helped by PAD. And so we're in this like weird thing where we're like, yes, 24/7, and we have so much more impact we could have right now during our hours. And then the one other piece of that I always say is like, there are no 24-hour shelters that you can go to. So if you get, I met someone at 5:30 p.m. on a Friday at MARTA at 5 Points, desperately wanted a bath. She had not bathed in 3 weeks, would go to any shelter. We called every single shelter, and it
there was not a single one that existed for her to go to until she went at 7 a.m. on Monday morning to wait in line to maybe get a shelter bed. So it is the simultaneous support of PAD, and it is the demand also for more infrastructure and resources in the city. But Jane, next door is where it is all happening.
Oh, yeah.
And I cannot access every single next door because they will not let one person get on all the next doors in all the neighborhoods. So I need my people to be on those next doors being like, hey, guess what? Did you know you could call PAD? Okay, like that is an actual tangible need I have. If you occupy those places on next door, that is something I need. I try not to because I want to protect my mental health, but I want to rely on you in Inman Park. Yes. Anyone in the city of Atlanta. So our services, we will respond to any concern in the city of Atlanta.
Another thing I'm just, thinking about, I'm sorry, Lauren, again, a lot of this, is from next door, but there are also neighborhood associations. So this is not really a question, it's just a question only like to ask whether you've explored this. Like I know our neighborhood association, there is a quote, crime chair. That's a position in the neighborhood association and probably in other neighborhood associations too in town. And I'm wondering if that, I don't know, if there's any way to help spread the word through those and again, not refer to it as crime, but that might be the still a contact person too.
Yes, I just wanted to say quickly that if you have extras of these fabulous brochures, which I saw you stash into your carry-on, we can leave them out in our entryway and congregants can pick them up. So that's something we can do tonight.
Okay. We can do that. We also are in the middle of printing posters and yard signs. So Dash, can you pass around? Oh, already did it. But Dash is passing around a sign-up sheet. I know y'all already signed up in the other one, but sign up on this one too so I can like keep you in the loop on all developments. I know, yes, I'm gonna give Ruby Beth. Oh, I just was gonna say to Jane's point, we go to the community association meetings, I go to the neighborhood planning unit meetings or NPU meetings. There's a lot. And so, it takes me, we have one actually happening right now that another teammate is doing. And so what we really need is community members speaking up. Like that's the piece that really I think will take us to the next level.
I just want to say something as all this really great brainstorming is happening, and obviously it gets a little exciting, and we come up with new ideas of ways that we can help. I also want to ask everybody just to take a deep breath, channeling my mom, obviously, and let it out. Because I think I want to bring us back to the first intervention that Clara offered us as a way that we can all participate, which is to say that this work works when we reduce the contact with police, when we reduce individuals' contact with police. And that's actually incredibly personal work. And that's incredibly family-based work, and then it's neighborhood-based work. So a lot of this is actually about getting to our fundamental understanding of what safety can look like and spreading that to each other. So we went into go mode, which is good. We have ideas, we have exciting ideas. There's also a lot of work to be done in all of our communities to release our obsession with police. And it takes a really long time to do that. We were all raised to look for quote unquote helpers, and police were the helpers that many of us were raised to think to look for. And what we've learned, and what is new for some people in our community and ancient wisdom for other people in our community, is that police are often not the people that keep us safe. And so in order for this work to work, we have to do that first. And oftentimes that is a really uncomfortable process. I personally, learning about incarceration as like a young person and then studying it and all of those things, I remember very the moment where I was like, I'm never calling the cops again. But I didn't actually have and therefore what after that. I just had this like fervent feeling that like, no matter what, I know that that's something I can do. But it doesn't mean I haven't been in unsafe situations since then. It doesn't mean I haven't been followed for random reasons. It doesn't mean I haven't seen somebody who needed help and been like, okay, now who do I call? And so I think, and there isn't an answer to that question everywhere. There is here, right? Like there is actually, for people who don't have neighborhood systems where they have neighbors that they call and safety practices implemented, this is an answer to that question. And not every city has that, not every state has that, not every country definitely has that. So there is some like internal work and some community work that needs to happen, even in anticipation of the drives and in anticipation of the conversations that you're gonna have with your neighbors, because we went into go mode because on some level there was some agreement in the room, like, yeah, this is good, this is inherently good, but that's not actually enough. There needs to be a further interrogation of what does it mean to change our relationship with police, to change our relationship with our neighbors, and to actually think about things in a really, really different way. So I wanted to offer that as a slight pace change, but not to deter any brainstorming whatsoever.
What do you propose?
It's okay, it's all right. So this may be slightly different from what you guys are doing, but I know it's an initiative that's been done in other cities. And a project that Beit Havorim could possibly take on, which is fixing taillights. Because people are pulled over for a broken taillight and then they get busted for not having insurance and not having a license or being undocumented or whatever. And if we organized some kind of event where I don't know how to fix a taillight, but there are people who know how to fix a taillight, you know, and it's sort of like the grown-up version of the car wash. You know, and that could be a project that we could do and also have an educational component in terms of pad, but also doing something tangible that isn't just, you know, bringing socks, which is also important. But so, just a thought.
All right, so I'm going to ask this question, and you can answer none of it or part of it. So, building off of what you're saying, Rubeth, so there's some hope or some thought that there's a very big a proposal to build a police and fire training center in the city of Atlanta, and there's hope, I think, among some of our people that will be used to train police officers to use this type of diversion rather than incarceration, what we've, you know, the whole mass incarceration pipeline that we've seen. So my question is have you been involved at all in any of those conversations about what kind of training will happen there, and is that hope founded? And a bigger question, do the police reach out to you? Do they say, like, we've got somebody and they're better off with you than with us? Is there that kind of relationship there?
Are we being recorded?
Are we being recorded?
Can I speak for Clara?
We're not being recorded.
No, I mean, I'm not gonna, don't worry. Guys. I
It's
just
being
didn't know if it's
streamed?
like gonna be on the website.
It's on YouTube.
Okay.
Okay.
I think you should assume it is being recorded.
Yes.
Looks like
Don't
it's
worry,
being,
guys. I think you guys think I would say things that I would never. I still am a very professional person. Okay, and I feel like that was back to a question from earlier. So we have a very positive relationship with the chief of police and like the police department in general. It is a relationship that we have. We really prioritize, and that is why we have not taken a public stand, for example, against the training facility / Cop City, because we want them to choose an alternative to arrest, and we want them to divert to us. we also, that data I was referencing earlier, where I know that arrests are happening, we get because of our partnership with APD. So if we weren't partners with them, one, they would not have this alternative to arrest to connect people to resources. And, you know, a lot of the things that drive our work are based on the data that we get from them. That being said, there are thousands and thousands of arrests that are happening every single year in this city. And again, I know this from the data, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for mental health, substance use, and extreme poverty that officers are not diverting us to us for, that they could be diverting to us for. So we get a lot of calls from officers that are like, hey, can you find this person shelter? And we have had a very strict line from the very beginning that we do not want the police to be social workers. We do not want them to call us to try to find shelter for someone. We only want them to call us if they are going to divert someone. And here's why. If we open the door to say police officers can call us for anything and we'll connect people to resources, what that means is that police officers are going to go out and they're going to have increased contact with people to try to connect them to resources. And again, back to that fundamental thing, every time an officer engages with someone, the risk of violence and incarceration is raised, right? So the last thing in the world we want to do is increase contact, right? And the thing we always say is like, look, if all of a sudden there are no arrests in the city of Atlanta for the things that could be diverted to PAD and our diversion numbers are super high, we can have another conversation. Maybe we'll change that. But as long as officers, as the data shows, are not choosing an alternative to arrest when they can, that's a really fine line. Like we will not open that door. And then I think goes back to the original question about training. We train law enforcement, again, we train them on one very, very specific thing. It is my feeling that an investment of $33 million could be much better spent in our community to provide the resources that folks actually need to thrive. And I don't think that the crisis of, if we want to say a crisis of public safety, which I don't actually think there is one, or not the way it's being defined, but the crises in our city are not because officers are not being trained well. They are because we do not have things for people. So, yeah.
We don't have this, in other words, we don't have the funds devoted to social services, mental health, anti-poverty. Okay. So for people on Zoom, Nicole said the funds are there, but they're being diverted somewhere else. And I think that might be a little broader than this conversation, but maybe not.
Are you saying, Nicole, like
I'll let you
basically
guys decide.
the money is there, it's a priority of where we're spending it as a city? Right. So Devin Franklin, who works at the Southern Center for Human Rights, and he speaks at every single city council meeting, he always says, a budget is a moral document. So I think that's what you're saying. The priorities that we have that we have decided as a city are reflected in the budget. And there are not $33 million for social services. I also know I'm way over time.
I want to just have us do a time check.
Yeah.
And maybe name 829. Sick. I want us to name out loud what else needs to happen in this space this evening. And I'm going to look at you for that.
So I'm going to take the prerogative of just adding a couple of things before I answer that question. Well, and they're very aligned with what we've already talked about, just to be clear. One of the things, Claire, you and I also talked about, consistent with the funding question and issue that came up, is that it would actually be really helpful for us, even more informed, even more kind of taking lots of deep breaths, to show up at those budget meetings. That is a thing that we should and could be doing as individual community members, educating ourselves and showing up in support. So that's a thing. Also, to sort of just to back to the list of things, and I totally agree, Ruby Beth, with the work that we need to do with ourselves, with our families, with our neighbors, but is that when we talked, I said, you know, our community is, you know, people of all, you know, many racial backgrounds, but predominantly white. And kind of being very clear, too, about what it means to show up, particularly if those neighborhoods where a lot of police calls are coming from are white neighborhoods, as people speaking to, you know, white people speaking to white people about the decisions that we make, about the discomforts that you talked about. And that's a piece of this, right? That there's an aspect of this is some of the work that we can do and that we can show up to do. Putting that all together is those of us who live, and not everyone lives in neighborhoods in the city of Atlanta, so I want to be clear about that. I do, and I think that the idea of gathering family and gathering neighbors and gathering friends for those of us who do live in those neighborhoods is a really powerful way to do that, and maybe working with you all to think about how to have the, you know, both to talk about PAD and do the educational piece so that people understand better what the services are, but also how to have those conversations effectively with our neighbors who are maybe operating from a place of fear or uncertainty. That is really, like, that is something I volunteer to do in my neighborhood, and would love to see other people who are in a position to really think through what that looks like as a way of helping. So, sorry, I took a lot of time, or 2 minutes. I just wanted to be clear that we really can support on the budget pieces to some extent, and that there is a place for us in particular to show up physically and in community with our neighbors and in other communities that are predominantly white, frankly. Yeah. The things that need to get done is I would obviously want you guys to have any closing thoughts, things like that. I want Rabbi to have a minute to just, in a prayer space, we're in a synagogue, to really center us, and then I want us to have a few minutes to eat the rest of the snacks out there, so I don't have to bring them home.
And to take a picture. Please don't leave.
And to take a picture.
Before. Emma has something she wants to share.
Yeah, I just had one closing thing. I think it's working. I think what we're doing is working. I've been feeling that. I work with folks that are in incredibly tough situations, and like the toughest of sort of our PAD folks, and they are getting into housing. They are getting treatment. Somebody who's been involved in PAD for 2 years now, and turnover for housing is often quicker than that. This is somebody whose needs have often exceeded regular care navigation, and only when this higher level of care programming that we have that I'm working on, she's about to go to treatment for 3 months, and she's ready. I'm picking her up tomorrow morning, Friday morning. What day is it? I don't know. Yeah, so that's just my closing thought. Is I think what we're doing is working, and that like electrifies me. So it's imperfect, it's complicated, it's hard, but ultimately it feels like we're on the right track more days than it doesn't, and that's really, you can't say that about every project like this, and you really can't say that about every job as a social worker. So.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have anything particularly profound. I will send out, or I'll have you send out the link to the video, because I think it will be helpful for folks to see us in action. I welcome anyone to come visit us at our office. I love having people visit. I think it's really different to see the work up close. But I also just want to say, thank you for that uplifting piece, because it's been a really hard day, and I think I lost sight of that today. But one thing I didn't mention is that Atlanta is the first city in the entire country to dispatch non-police response teams through 311. So what we're doing is really revolutionary and is really important, and we are seeing it being replicated across the country. Every single day I get a message on our email account saying, we're in Iowa and we want to do this. And I'm like, I don't know anything about Iowa. But I think that the people's like part of the cruelty and the oppression of this system is it limits our imaginations, and it is really hard to conceive of something different than what we have in front of us. And I think that when we are able to show, hey, there's a different way of responding, there's a different way of treating people with dignity and compassion and looking them in the eyes and saying, I know that you are naked on the street and you still deserve love and tenderness and connection. When we are able to demonstrate that to the Atlanta community, we are able to shift how we think about things as a whole. And I think that movement is growing nationally as well. So I invite you to join us and be part of that in whatever way feels right for you, and with each and every one of your own capacity and interest levels. Like, we're here, we're ready to get messy with you. Reba, you want to say anything?
It's hard to follow. All right. I guess the prayer better be sincere. Uh-oh. All right, let's think about this. All right, whatever prayer pose you want to take in your practice. Eloheinu ve'Elohe avotenu ve'imotenu v'dorotenu, our God and God of our fathers, our mothers, our ancestors. We are here at Beth Havarim on La Vista Road in Atlanta, and we are so grateful for this community, for having the courage to have this conversation that many synagogues would not be having and are not having. We're grateful for the really powerful and visionary women who have taught us today about the work that they're doing in the world. We're grateful for the folks in the city of Atlanta who are seeing a different path from violence and incarceration to clothing the naked and feeding the hungry, which is what you, of course, commanded us to do for the past 3,000 years. Give us the strength to continue to advocate for this work in the world, even when our friends might not want to hear it and might be suspicious and might even think less of us because of it. Give us the courage, the backbone to stand in front of our lawmakers and ask them that their budgets be moral documents, and that morality connect to the deep and powerful values that you have taught us for generations. Help us move past despair and hopelessness into possibility and collaboration and wonder and gratitude. May we walk every day a little closer to that vision, to your light, to your love, and to your peace. And we say amen. Round of applause for this crew. And snacks. Thank God for snacks.
Thanks, Zoom. Thank you. Jose, I'll be home in an hour, babe.
Adios.
Hi, Ava's mom.
Hi. Hi.
Aw. Okay, let's take a picture real quick. Okay. And then I'll hang